नमस्कार, स्वागत करता हूं। मैं आपका दोस्त और होस्ट सुनील शर्मा। दोस्तों, आप जितने YouTube पर लाइव देख रहे हैं, हमारे दर्शक, हमारे फ्रेंड्स, उन सभी का मैं स्वागत करता हूं। महासेवा, महाराष्ट्र सोसाइटी वेलफेयर एसोसिएशन और MNS मीडिया न्यूज सर्विस की तरफ से दोस्तों आपका इस नॉलेज शेयरिंग प्लेटफॉर्म में स्वागत है। और साथ ही हमारे पे जो वेबएक्स पर जुड़े हैं पार्टिसिपेट, तमाम सैकड़ों पार्टिसिपेट, उन सभी का भी मैं स्वागत करता हूं दोस्तों। और आज का विषय मैं बता दूं आपको, आज का हमारा विषय है TDS प्रोविजन अंडर इनकम टैक्स। इस विषय को अधिक जानकारी और बताने के लिए हमारे साथ कीनोट स्पीकर है CA वेदांत पारिक और मॉडरेटर है CA विशाल गाला। दोनों का स्वागत करता हूं मैं। और मॉडरेटर है आज के वेबिनार के मिस्टर विशाल गाला। CA विशाल गाला जो एडवाइजर है महासेवा के, उनको इनवाइट करता हूं आगे की जो कार्रवाई है, आगे की जो लेक्चर के लिए हमारे जो कीनोट स्पीकर है CA वेदांत पारिक जी, उनका परिचय दे और साथ ही उनको इनवाइट करें। तो मैं इनवाइट कर रहा हूं मिस्टर विशाल गाला को। प्लीज वेलकम विशाल जी, गुड इवनिंग, स्वागत है आपका।
Thank you, Sunil ji. I welcome everyone in today's session on the income tax. Today we have with us CA Vedant Parik. CA Vedant Parik is a managing partner. He is he has experience of more than 5 years in field of audit and assurance. He also specializes in banking and real estate industry. His area of expertise also includes forensic audit and commodity exchange related compliance. He has also been appointed as an independent professional director of the Godhra City Cooperative Bank Limited and was associated with Mrs. Talati and Talati CA Company. He is also pursuing diploma in system audit DISA and valuation degree from ICAI. CA Vedant is also an empaneled speaker of WIRC of ICICI. Now I request CA Vedant Parik sir to take the charge.
So, hello and welcome all the participants to this today's webinar, as briefly narrated by Sunil ji and Vishal ji. Thank you so much for the warm introduction. At the outset, I would like to thank and congratulate Mahaseva Association, this is Maharashtra Societies Welfare Association, along with MNS News Media, for organizing such an event in this difficult situation of COVID-19, whereby you are helping all the participants, as rightly stated by Sunil ji, that it is a phase where knowledge should be constant and it should keep growing, though there are various difficulties and problems which are facing under COVID-19. That is a simple understanding of TDS. A person who keeps a bill for the services provided, or say for example any other product provided, if that falls within the requirement criteria for deduction of TDS, say for example, if I have raised an invoice of rupees 90, 100, I have raised an invoice, gave it to my vendor or gave it to my party or debtor so as to make the payment, and if that party makes to a payment to me, for example 100, then there is no issue. But the transaction which has taken place between me as an assessee and that party as an assessee, if that transaction has been defined under the TDS norms of the Income Tax Act, then as per the rates prescribed under the Act, TDS has to be deducted. So say for example, I being a chartered accountant, I have provided my audit services to a client, and assuming there is no GST, I have raised the invoice of rupees 100. Now, as my transaction is in the nature of professional services falling under section 194J, my client would deduct TDS at the rate of 10%. Don't worry, what all I am discussing, I'll be explaining in detail at the end, but this just to obtain the idea, I am throwing some lights. So my client will be deducting rupees 10 of on 100 rupees invoice. So net amount which I'll be receiving is 90 rupees, friends. So that is what is known as TDS, that is tax which has been deducted from the source where my income was going to be generated. So that is why it is source, and as the amount of tax has been deducted, it is called as tax deducted at source, friends. Yes, so this is about deduction. That is the first step. Now I received my net payment, correct? So now at the end I will explain you, let me just take you through step by step process. At the end we'll be connecting various dots so that what is the entire process of TDS you will be in a position to understand, friends. Till that time, be very participative and attentive. and try to understand each and every step, because when at the end, when I'll be connecting the dots, you will be in a position to understand the process very smoothly. When should the TDS be deducted and by whom? So that was the question which we are discussing about. So TDS is to be deducted by any person who falls within the prescription as defined under the law. Correct. And what is the TDS amount to be deducted, at what rate, by what limit crossing, and what nature of transaction, that we are covering at a later stage. But there is an exception to it. Please note it down that no TDS has to be deducted if the person is making the payment is an individual or an HUF, and whose plus and it is written and, so whose books are not required to be audited. So what does that mean? If I am an individual or an HUF and if my books of accounts are audited, then whether I am required to supposed to deduct TDS, the answer is yes. But here, if it is mentioned that it is to be audited, so that audit is under the Income Tax Act under section 44 AB. Correct, friends? So there are certain exceptions to it. Let's just go through it. So for example, in case of rent payment made by an individual and a HUF, if I'm an individual or an HUF and I'm paying the rent exceeding rupees 50,000 per month, then the TDS is required to be deducted at the rate of 5%, even if individual or HUF is not liable to tax. So this is an exception to that exception. Correct, friends? Also, such individual and HUF are liable to deduct TDS and need not apply for 10. Because, for example, if you are an assessee who is required to deduct TDS and deposits that certain fund to the government's deposit, so you are supposed to obtain 10 from the government so that you will get an ID under the income tax for making of the payment of TDS amount. That same you will be using for the purpose of filing your return. Second case, that is very crucial and being faced by many of the people or the assessees who are doing job and under our salaried structure. So in that cases, your employer would have been deducting TDS, and that TDS will be as per the income tax slab rates. So what does income tax slab rate means? As you all might be aware, that say for example up to 250 lakh, up to 2,50,000 there is no tax. Then there is the slab of 250 to 5 lakh, then 5 lakh to 7.5 lakh, 7.5 to 10, and above 10. That is a new slab which has been defined. So that all is being taken care by your company or an employer who is deducting TDS. Correct. So that will be as per the tax slab rates. But so for example, bank deduct TDS at 10%, or banks may also deduct TDS at the rate of 20% if you have not provided PAN information. So what is that? That I'll also be taking up. If you submit investment proofs to your employer and your taxable income is below the taxable limit, that is 2,50,000 rupees, you do not have to pay any tax, friends, and therefore no tax on your income. Third category, you can also submit form G, 15G or 15H to the bank if your total income is below the taxable limit, so they don't deduct your TDS on your interest income. There are many cases that senior citizens or some of the assessees who have the total savings in the form of deposits, and they are earning regular interest by which they are incurring their household expenditure, but their interest income is not that much level that they cross the taxability slab. So in those cases, an assessee will be supposed to give form 15G or H on the basis of the criteria which has been prescribed under the law, so that your bank will not deduct your TDS on the interest component. Now, why the question should arise that why the if it is not crossing the taxable limit, then why the interest TDS is being deducted? That also will taking up in the next session. Next slide. In the fourth category, in case if you're not able to submit proof to your employer, or if your employer or bank has already deducted TDS and your total income is below taxable limit, then what is to be done? Then there is a simple way. You have to file your income tax return and claim the refund component. Say for example, I am an senior citizen who is earning an interest income, but due to lack of knowledge, I didn't submit a form 15G and H. But I was knowing that there is a slab of 250, 2,50,000, or say for example 3 lakh. Then, as my interest income was, say, for example, 150,000. So I didn't deposit, I didn't give Form 15G or H because my income was not anyway crossing the taxability limit. But though bank has deducted the TDS, now what is to be done? You will go to bank and ask for TDS. No, friends, that is not the, no participants, that is not the case. If your tax has been deducted in a situations where tax was not supposed to be deducted, you have to file your income tax return. Thereby, you have to show that your tax has been deducted by so and so person, so that I am eligible to claim the refund of that amount. So that is what the procedure is. Now, when I said I have to present who has deducted my tax, mind all these words because this all explanation is going to come up in the next slide, friends. So now when we're discussing about Form 15G and H, so what conditions you must fulfill to submit your Form 15G? So Form 15G can only be submitted if you are an individual, an HUF, or a trust, or any other assessee, but you are not either a company nor you are a firm. Second condition, you are an Indian resident. Third condition, you should have age less than 60 years. Fourth condition, the tax calculated on your total income is nil. And the fifth, the total interest income for the year is less than the basic exemption limit of that year, which is rupees 2.5 lakh in the financial year 2019. Now, why the importance is being given to that year? Because as you all might be aware, budget is being given by the government or the finance ministry in the February month most of the times, which brings certain changes or relaxations into the laws. So there might be high probabilities that the slab rate would have been changed, the percentage would have been changed of the TDS. So the importance is being given that in that year, here example has been assessment year 2021. Let me explain you what is assessment year 2021. Income tax runs on the basis of assessment year and not calendar year or financial year. Say for example, currently the calendar year which is going on is 20, correct? But in financial term, it is assessment year to 2020, not assessment year, financial year 2020 to 2021. That is 1st of April 2020 to 31st of March 2021, correct? So that is a financial year. But in income tax terms, they are running 1 year ahead. So they call it as assessment year 2021-22. Correct, friends? The current year, they call it as previous year. So, for example, if I'm saying that TDS is deducted on today, say for example, 17th of July. So, what they will say during the previous year, 2020-21, the TDS was deducted. For the assessment year 2021 to 22. So, that is how the nomenclature which is being used as far as previous year and assessment year is concerned under the Income Tax Act. So, that was about the Form 15G. Moving ahead to Form 15H, this is exactly the opposite of G. Yes, friends. If you are an individual or an and resident Indian, two conditions. Third, you are a senior citizen or will be 60 years of age during the year for which you are submitting the form. Third condition, the tax calculated on a total income is nil. So if these conditions are fulfilled, so the basic criteria remaining all conditions same. You check your age. If it is below 60, you go for G. If it is above 60 or if you are going to cross during that period 60, go for Form 15H. Now, as I was discussing that 20% of tax if the parcel has not furnished the PAN. So where does it mention in the Act? So section 206 AA states the requirement to furnish your PAN. We are often asking the question that why should I quote my PAN or why should I give my PAN? So that PAN is a unique number given against your name which is used as an identity by income tax department to trace you or know your flow of income. Correct. So the what does the section says? The section says, clause 1 says, any person entitled to receive any sum or income or amount, three things which has been mentioned, any sum, any income or any amount, may not probably or totally be your income, that may be any sum or any amount on which tax is deductible under chapter 17b, that is where that has been mentioned, the rates and the transaction nature herein referred to as deductee, shall furnish the PAN to the person to whom, to the person who is responsible to deduct such taxes. Here it has been referred as deductor. So there are two parties basically, friends. One is a party who deducts the TDS, and the other hand there is a party whose TDS is being deducted. Correct. So the party whose TDS is being deducted is required to submit his PAN to the person who is deducting your TDS. Where it will be useful, that we will also be discussing. Now, what does this section further states? That failing which, tax shall be deducted at the higher of the following rates. So what does that mean? If the person whose tax is required to be deducted not given the PAN details to the person who is deducting your TDS, then this person has to deduct TDS of following three rates, which is a higher of the three. Correct. So first is the rates specified in the relevant provision of the act. So what does that mean? Say for example 194J, then at the rate of 10%. At the rates or rates in force, how does it differ from the previous one? So say for example during this COVID pandemic, which we'll be discussing further if time permits, has stated that tax has to be deducted at a lesser 25%. So tax is to be deducted at 75% of the rates prescribed. So the rates in force will be 75% of part 1, which is relevant provisions of the act. So for example 10, then at the rates in force are currently 7.5. And the third at the rate of 20%. So first was 10%, 7 is 7 point, second is 7.5, and third is 20 at the higher. If you are submitting your PAN, your tax will be deducted at 7.5%. But if you have not submitted your PAN, your TDS will be deducted at 20% straight away. That is mentioned under 206AA. Now, what does its clause 6 say? This is also very crucial, friends. Where the PAN provided to the deductor is invalid or does not belong to the deductee, it shall be deemed that the deductee has not furnished his PAN to the deductor, and the provisions of 1 shall apply accordingly. Provision of 1 is this visible on your screen, which you have discussed previously. Now, often you would have said that please provide your PAN number. We often also say that my PAN number is, but friends, that is not PAN number, because PAN stands for permanent account number, where number is already included. So now onwards, when you are stating PAN, so that already includes PAN number within that short form. So don't say PAN number, it is PAN only. Moving ahead. Now say for example, the deductor has deducted the TDS amount. What is to be done? How that is to be paid and when it is to be paid? So the law states that TDS must be deposited to the government by 7th of subsequent month. So say for example, you as a deductor has deducted the TDS amount during the month of July. You are supposed to pay tax to the government's account by 7th of August. Certain clarifications are there. First, I have already explained. Moving ahead to second. However, TDS deducted in the month of March, that is year end, can be deposited by 30th April. So considering the year end closure pressure, government has provided relaxation where they are saying that though March you are not supposed to pay your submit your TDS amount by 7th of April, but that can be extended to 30th of April. The third point, for TDS deducted on rent and purchase of property, the due date is 30 days from the end of the month in which TDS is deducted. It's simple and easy to understand. So this is how to deposit TDS. So it has been stated that TDS is to be deposited using a challan ITNS 281 on the government portal. So it is a very simple process. You can go on YouTube as well and find out how the TDS is to be paid. Even though income tax e-filing portal also provides the procedure in a simple language, how to deduct, how to pay the deposit the TDS amount. So this is how the e-payment challan looks like, where you have to provide the basic details for the which month you are deducting TDS, for which assessment you are deducting TDS, whether you are a company or a non-company, under which section you are deducting TDS, your basic details, and the amount of TDS. Once that is being done, your tax will be, challan will be prepaid, and that will be deposited into government's account. So what's next? The next step is you are supposed to file your return, because till now you have only deposited the amount which has been collected. But governments also want to know that whose TDS this has been received by us, which has been submitted by you. So that details what is the difference that between the TDS payment and TDS return. It is very easy and important to understand. Payment of TDS, creation of challan, is simply deposit of fund, friends. But whose amount has been deposited by whom, when, under which section, that is being submitted under TDS return. So TDS return becomes very crucial when the government want to know, even though why it is important for us that the deductor pays and deposits the TDS. So that also will be discussing under form 26 AS. But let me first take you through which all nature of forms are there for payment of TDS. So friends, first of all is form 26Q. So 26Q form is for TDS on all payments, except for salaries. So which all are the payments? That also we are, hold up your breath, we are coming up to that. So what is the due date for payment of the submission of that form? That is Q1, it is 31st of July. For Q2, it is 31st of October. For Q3, it is 31st of January. And for Q4, it is 31st of May. Form number 24Q. So these forms are divided on the basis of the classification of the payment for which you are going. So first was 26Q, which is generalized and for all the transaction except for salary. Now to 24Q, as there was an exception in form 26Q, now it has been covered in form 24Q, where it is for salary. So the similar due dates as already discussed in 26Q. Then there is 27Q. Mind well, friends, in 26Q we have discussed it is for all payments, but all payments there are certain exceptions which are as per 26Q, 27Q, 26QB, and 26QC. So what does 27Q mean? So all those payments which are made to non-residents, that is foreign remittances, that is covered under 27Q, but that also accepts salary. And the due dates are similar in nature of 26Q and 24Q. For 26QB, that will be applicable if there is sale of property, then you go for form 26Q for filing of the return. And what is the deadline? So it is 30 days from the end of the month in which TDS is deducted. This is very crucial, friends. Remember, this is not on quarterly basis. This has to be straight away paid within 30 days from the end of the month in which TDS is deducted. Similarly, same deadline in 26QC, nature of transaction is TDS on rent, friends, as we already discussed previously. Yes, reaching to a very conclusive part, that is form 26AS. What, in a simple term, if I explain what form 26AS for your understanding, the 26AS is a tax credit statement of the assessee. Tax credit statement. So 26AS is a pool which determines for me as an assessee how much tax is collected under my name by income tax department. Remember, initially I gave example of 500 rupees. Say for example, ITR, my tax liability is 750. 500 has already been deducted. 250 is my liability. So that 500 already deducted, where is it visible? So this is the source, friends, form 26AS, where all your nature of tax which has been collected by government will be presented here, be it in the nature of TDS, be it in the nature of advance tax paid as in self-assessment, be it details of tax collected by collectors. So that includes 5 examples which are presented here, includes info on tax deducted on your income by deductors, that is TDS, by tax collectors, that is TCS. 206C TCS I have not covered here considering the time frame. That is exact opposite concept of TDS, where tax under TDS the tax is deducted, whereas under TCS the tax is collected. So that is a basic difference which I have not covered considering the time frame. Then there is advance tax which you are paying, then there is self-assessment tax, then there are regular assessment and multiple other examples. So for you to understand what form 26AS is at the year end, you should say at the time of filing return that I want to check my Form 26AS, because on the basis of your income tax return, say for example 3 lakh is the liability which you are supposed to pay. Please verify, because you may not be in a position to know when your amount was deducted as tax, or when you have, if you have forgotten, you have paid an advance tax. So that all compilation can be netted off or adjusted against your ITR liability, and the net amount is only supposed to be paid, friends. So this is just an example or a sample of Form 26AS. How does it look? Correct, friends? This is available from your login portal on the e-filing website. Tax liability in case where TDS is already deducted from income. So there are maybe two cases. Say for example, first, in case of salary, TDS is deducted on the basis of tax slab, which we have already discussed. In case of other income tax apart from salary, TDS is deducted generally between 10 to 20%, or certain cases 2%. The rates are not based on your total income, friends. Hence, you would suffer a TDS on receipt in certain cases separately. You would require to calculate your income tax in annual income, that I have already told as per ITR. Your actual tax liability would be calculated on the total taxable income. From the tax calculated, you will claim credit of TDS deducted from 26AS. Reduce that amount, you may have a refund as well. Say for example, that is also chance. Your tax liability comes to 1 lakh rupees, but your TDS is already deducted 1,50,000. So 50,000 is negative. So for that, you have to claim refund. The good thing is income tax department gives your refund along with interest. So that is a good thing. So in both cases, either in salary or apart from salary, you have to file tax return and claim the refund that I have already discussed. Now, the basic criteria and the basic thing about TDS rate, that is rate chart, that differs from year to year if certain changes are brought in by budget. Correct. So Finance Minister, Honorable Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharamanji has presented Union Budget on February 1, 2020, which was passed by the Parliament unanimously on March 27, 2020 as Finance Act 2020. So wide budget, FM has made various changes under TDS provisions, and two new TDS sections were introduced, that is 194K and 194O, that will be applicable from 1st of October 2020. So on where the tax on mutual fund income and e-commerce transaction would be applicable, friends. The third point is to cover the assessees who are not filing their income tax return and withdrawing cash of more than rupees 20 lakh, which was previously mentioned under this similar section, was 1 crore rupees. Amendment was brought, which will be applicable from July 1, 2020. So this is talking about section 194(8), friends, very crucial for all of you. Previously, we have observed that assessee used to deal in the cash by withdrawing the cash from their account up to a huge amount. And as we all know, this government is running with a motive of digital cash, of digital India, and promoting plastic cash and plastic money and e-wallets, whereby they are trying to reduce the movement of cash in the economy. So with that motive, 198 has been introduced, where if the cash has been withdrawn beyond 20 lakhs, and there are certain other criteria which I am not discussing in detail, then on those withdrawal of cash also TDS will be deducted by whom? By the bankers who are giving their. So this is the rate chart, friends. We have covered certain various important examples and certain important sections ranging from 192 to 195. Let's understand, it is a crucial part of this session. First section, that is 192. So the nature of transaction is salary, and what are the rates that are according to the slab, monetary limits according to slab. So let's understand how the data is being tabulated in the table. So if there is an nature of transaction is salary payment, that falls under section 192, and the rates will be, as we have all repeatedly discussed, as per the slab rates of the income tax, and there are no monetary limits apart from the limits that has been specified under the income tax slab. The second is section 194A. So that is interest other than interest on securities. So say for example FD, then the rates of TDS are 10%, and what is the monetary limit? 5,000. So how to interpret it? If you are receiving a deposit, interest on deposit, and that interest component is beyond 5,000 rupees, say for example 6,000 rupees, then TDS on that transaction will be deducted at the rate of 10%, that is 600 rupees. So net amount that will be deposited in your account will be 5,400 rupees. So that is how the interpretation goes of this table. Third is section 194C, where payment to contractor or subcontractor is being made. The TDS rate here has been prescribed as 1% for payment of individual or HUF and 2% for others. The rate here is 30,000 for individual contract and 1 lakh in aggregate. Let's understand, because 194C is the only complex section and frequently used in the business. What does it state? Say in case of an individual or an FA, if you are making a payment to an individual or an HUF, then TDS under 194C is to be deducted at 1%. So you are a deductor. What you are supposed to do? Check that person to whom you are making payment is an individual or HUF. First of all, you have to see whether it falls under the nature of transaction falls under 194C. If yes, what is 194C? The payment which is in nature of contractor payment or subcontractor payment. So if your transaction falls under with this category, then second step of checking whether I am making payment to an individual or an HUF, that is being checked. Then third monetary limit is whether the payment which I am making in a single bill exceeds 30,000 or the aggregate during the year exceeds 1 lakh rupees, then that is to be deducted at the rate of 1% if the party is individual or an HUF. If that is LLP, partnership firm or a company, then the TDS rate is 2%, friends. Similarly, there is another section 194H which talks about commission or brokerage, where TDS is to be deducted at 5% and if the amount crosses 15,000 rupees. 194I deals with rent, where TDS is to be deducted at 10% for payment of rent for land and building, or 2% for payment of rent for plant and machinery if the amount exceeds 2,40,000 rupees. 194IA deals with payment on purchase of immovable property, where 1% of TDS is to be deducted if the transaction value exceeds rupees 50 lakh, friends. This is in real estate industry, and many of the people are professionals are even missing this, so this is very crucial. Then commonly again used 194J, that is with regard to professional and technical services, where there are various ambiguity which I am discussing in a later slide, where if the payment exceeds 30,000 rupees, then in case of professional services, TDS is to be deducted at the rate of 10%. But if it is in the nature of technical services, then you are deducting TDS at the rate of 2%. Why this is so? Let me explain you in detail in the next slide. Then there is one section 195. Previous all sections which I have discussed is about resident and domestic payments. This section talks about the payment which is to foreign remittance or payment to non-residents. So for that a separate slab is provided. So here it is mentioned that as applicable tax under income tax on that nature of income. That altogether is a very long process. So section 194C or 194J, that has been now simplified. Why the rates has been deducted? There were ambiguity between 194C and 194J. If you're a professional or a businessman who is deducting TDS, you might be suffering that there are certain nature of transactions which are falling under 194C as well or 194J as well due to its complex nature. So government analyzed it, interpreted it, and came with a solution that if your transaction is in the nature of technical services, straight away deduct under 2%, be it 194J, 194C. We are making it respectively uniform so that the TDS rate for technical services will be 2% only. Now, applicability of TDS for brush up. Various provisions of Income Tax Act requires applicability of TDS, which you have discussed right now, ranging from 192 to 195 in different ways. But most provisions of TDS applicable to a person to whom tax audit under 44AB is applicable from 1st of April 2020 is that all the provisions is changed as tax audit turnover limit is changed under 44AB. Now, as already I have discussed that it is applicable to all those assets whose accounts are audited, especially in case of HUF and individual. But 44AB has also certain limit that is linked to turnover of an assessee that keeps changing on the basis of budget, which we have discussed. Further, a person having turnover of 1 crore for business and 50 lakh for profession are now required to deduct TDS under section 194A, 194C, 194H, 194I and 194J. With respect to cooperative housing societies, above limit of turnover is not applicable, as it is applicable only for resident individual and HUF friends. Moving ahead, as the time is passing very fast, I'll not be going into detail. But what are the consequences if I'm not complying with these norms? So the bifurcation has been made into 3 parts, which states that in case you have not deposited the TDS by correct date, the penalties will be as applicable. So the cases are, if you do not file within the deadline, then there will be late filing fee applicable when on a subsequent date you are filing that thing. Second case, if you do not deposit the TDS amount in time, then there is interest penalty, interest clause. And the third thing is, if the TDS is not filed within 1 year of the due date, then there is penalty which is imposed. Let's see how does it work. So late filing fee. So that has been prescribed under section 234E, which states that you will have to pay a fine of 200 rupees per day until your return is being filed. So that is talking about filing of return. If it is non-compliance, 200 rupees per day under section 234E. You have to pay this for every day until the fine amount is equal to the amount you are supposed to pay as TDS. So if it's small amount, that is okay. But if it is, say for example, 50 lakh, 10 lakh, or it's a material amount, then you will be in a big critical situation, because that money will be going out of your pocket as a late filing fee. I'm not going into detail of taking the examples because we are running short of time. Then there is interest clause, which is mentioned under section 201A, where nature of default is, say for example, non-deduction of TDS at source either in whole or in part. Say for example, you have not deducted the TDS, you are supposed to deduct TDS, but you have not deducted TDS. As a deductor, then you are enough facing a liability, friends, in form of interest. If you have deducted it short, say for example, it was supposed to be deducted at 10%, but you deducted at 5%, you are under trouble. You're supposed to deduct it at 10%, but you are not deducted, you are under trouble. Where? Under 201A. So what is the trouble? 1% per month interest has to be paid. For what period? From the date on which tax deductible to the date on which tax is actually deducted. मतलब जब से टैक्स डिडक्ट करना था तब से लेके जब आपने डिडक्ट किया, that entire timeline, that interest rate will be applicable at the rate of 1% per month. Second case, after deduction of TDS, non-payment of tax either in whole or part. This is kar chori. You have deducted, you have collected the tax amount, but you have not deposited to the government, or you have short deposited to the government. In that case, 1.5% per month interest penalty is there, and the time frame is from the date of deduction to the date of payment. The another portion which I have mentioned in the second year is 0.75. Considering this COVID-19 scenario, this has been reduced to half. Instead of 1.5%, you are supposed to pay at 0.75 during this COVID tenure, which has been prescribed here. Correct. Not going into detail. 1.5 already discussed. Case study I am skipping. Now, yes, transactions of housing cooperative society. First case. This is the second phase. Let me first take the penalty clause. Yes. So, in wake of the lockdown, so this is about the lockdown changes. The department has waived all of the penalty provisions for the period between 20th March to 30th June 2020, as per the ordinance which was issued in 2020. In the normal period of business, penalty equals to, so that was about COVID-19 period which has been time framed. But what about normal cases? In normal cases, penalty equals to the amount that was failed to be deducted or collected or remitted that may be imposed. So that has been prescribed under section 276B. And what does that section says? If a person fails to credit to the credit of government, then the TDS by him as required by or under the provisions of 17B, which we have already discussed, the rate chart, he shall be punishable with rigorous imprisonment for a term which shall not be less than 3 months, but that may be extended to 7 years and with fine. What is the penalty for late filing of TDS return, friends? So that has been described in the first part, that is late filing fee under section 234E, where 200 rupees per day has to be filed, per day has to be the charges. Second is penalty under 271H, where there is a penalty which is minimum penalty of 10,000 that may be extended up to 1 lakh rupees. Third, penalty under section in addition to the late filing fee under 1, that has been under 234E. And the fourth, this section will also cover the cases of incorrect filing of TDS return. So these all are the penalties as far as the filing of TDS return or faulty TDS returns are concerned. No penalty under 271H. So now we are talking about exception to that penalty clause. No penalty under 271H shall be levied in case of delay in filing of TDS return if these three conditions are specified. So first, TDS is paid to the credit of government. Second, late filing fee and interest is paid to the government. And third, the TDS return or TCS return is filed before the expiry of a period of 1 year from the due date specified in this behalf. So these are the exceptions, friends. So I was talking about the transactions. Second category, we are reaching to the second category of transactions of housing cooperative society, after which we'll be doing a recap and the mapping, connecting the dots of the entire presentation so that you get a frame of the entire presentation. So first case of an cooperative society is, we would have observed that repairs and maintenance expenses are housing society are routine expenditure as to manage their buildings, gardens, clubhouses, roads, etc. So it has been stated that according to section 194C, TDS is required to be deducted on works contract services. Please mind it and note it, friends. Second case, at festival housing societies held functions, and at such functions have program for lunch or dinner. So what about that? So there also it has been specified that according to section 194C, payment to caterers also attract TDS under section 194C. Third case, housing societies take service of chartered accountants, engineers, architects on many occasions. So as I already discussed, as it will fall under professional services, and TDS will be deducted under section 194J. Many housing societies take services of security agencies for service of security of society. In those cases, the services of security agency is considered as a contract on manpower basis. So that will be deducted under section 194C, friends. Many housing societies employ staff for maintenance of society, friends, as well. So in case of employment of staff, housing society has required to deduct under section 192 under employee category. So that was all about the third thing. The deduct tax reforms is a long procedure. I'm not going through it, but I will request you, please go to YouTube platform and search CA Vedant K Parikh direct tax reforms. You'll be easily able to find. There is a handsomely made video along with a expert in the field of direct tax who will be explaining the entire COVID-19 changes, which is very crucial at this point of time for the compliance purposes. So now let me recapitulate the entire webinar which we have discussed. So the journey has begun from what is TDS. So recapitulating first, what is about TDS, when it is to be deposited, what is the return procedure. Sir, there is a lot of disturbance, it is disturbing. So first is TDS, understanding the concept. Then there is collection of TDS. We have came through a cycle where we understood what TDS is. Let me explain you the entire cycle, how this TDS cycle works, friends. First, it begins from a transaction. Say, for example, let's begin with my case. I am a professional chartered accountant. I have raised an invoice to my client. Now, my client, say, for example, 100 rupees invoice has been raised. So now my client would be paying me 90 rupees after deducting TDS under section 194J, that is professional services, at the rate of 10%. So he has collected 10 rupees on my behalf. So now that client in the month of July has deducted. So that client is required to deposit that 10 rupees to the account of government, central government. By which time, friends? We have already discussed. By 7th of August, maximum time. So that client has to generate a challan whereby he has to mention that 10 rupees has been collected. That 10 has to be deposited to the account of government by 7th of August. This continues for a period of 3 months, July, August and September. 31st October, there will be deadline for filing of quarterly return. So as my client has deposited 10 rupees, government do not know that whose 10 rupees they have collected. They do only know that this client has deposited money, but for which transaction government don't know. In case of TDS return, when the client files TDS return for the quarter 2 of this year, in that quarter I have to share my pen to that client, because that what will happen, as I have provided my pen, that client will quote my pen number. See, I'm using pen number is not to be used, my pen. So my client has to use my pen and mention it in the return that 10 rupees has been deducted against the total invoice value of 100 under section 194J on the date. Say for example, today on 17th of July I have deducted under 194J for professional services of this pen holder 10 rupees on the invoice of 100. So that is how return details are being submitted. Once the return is being submitted, that reaches to the government. So now government at every quarter end is in a position to understand whose money they are collecting. So that is what the role of return is. The role of return is to identify the party, the transaction, gross value, net value. The background of challan is collection of the funds by central government. Now that part is over. Now we are reaching to year end. Me as a chartered accountant, I am reaching to year end. Say for example, my total annual receipt is 5 lakh rupees, and I am liable to pay tax of rupees, say for example 10,000. Correct. I'm not. It is an ambiguous example. It is just an hypothetical example. Say for example, 10,000 is my TDS liability. Not 10,000 because I have taken here 10. Let me take 50 rupees is my tax liability. Now what I'll do at the time that I have computed in my ITR में मैंने देखा कि my tax liability is coming to 50 rupees. Now, as I'm eligible to set off the previously collected taxes, I have not paid any advance tax. So then I'll go to my portal, I'll download my 26AS form, and now I am checking how much TDS is being deducted by various parties. So in that I came across, yes, on none of my bill, my client deducted 10 rupees. So yes, immediately I'll net off that 10 rupees against that 50. So my net liability is 40 rupees. So now I have to make self-assessment tax and pay to the deposit of government, and thereby my ITR process will be completed. There are second case, say for example, instead of 10, 100 rupees is during their tax which has been deducted by the various clients, against which ITR is showing only 50 rupees liability. So now 40 rupees liability, say for example. So I am eligible because I have paid excess tax of 60 rupees. So 40 is tax liability minus 100 which has already been deducted. So answer comes negative 60. For that I have to claim for refund. So that is what all about TDS is, friends. This is all the entire connecting the dots and the wholesome picture at a macro level. This is just a description. I have not covered technical part because there are various questions, various technical doubts which you may face when you come across the practical transactions. I have been seeing that various questions are being raised with regard to the technical thing that can be referred definitely from the rate chart, considering the by taking the understanding as I have explained how to read that trade chart. Apart from that, I would urge and request you all to go on YouTube and see this video, because this is very critical. What we have taken and understood is the normal scenario, but right now we are living in COVID scenario where various relaxations and modifications are there under direct tax, which has been very well nicely presented under the video. So I'm skipping that thing. And as requested by various participants, I'll be sharing the presentations as well. These are my contact details for future reference, or any doubts or queries or any suggestions or feedbacks are most welcome. You can reach me out on my contact number, on my WhatsApp number. You can also find me on YouTube, that is CA Vedant K Parikh. You can search it on YouTube, and you can subscribe to my channel to stay updated about various videos which I'm posting now and then. regarding various updates that take place under direct or indirect tax or any other critical under Companies Act also. You can post your queries on my email, which is vedant@parikhandassociates.in, or you can go to our website. Thereby also you can find the videos, entire library of the videos along with the documents which will be useful to you. Let me tell you, sir, you all are doing a fantastic job. I wish you all a very good luck. Thank you so much.